Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Rausan Pereira. The Constitution 123rd Amendment Bill has been passed by the Rajya Sabha. The bill grants constitutional status to the National Commission on Backward Classes and places it on par with National Commission for Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes. The Lok Sabha unanimously passed the bill on Thursday, making the National Commission for Backward Classes a constitutional body and granting it complete powers to safeguard the rights and interests of other backward classes. Last year, the Rajya Sabha had made amendments like the increase of the 3-member NCBC committee to 5 members to provide representation to a woman and a person from a minority community. It also mandated that the 5 members be from OBC communities. An amendment that was voted out by the Lok Sabha was to give the states a significant role in making recommendations to the list of OBC. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will take a closer look at the Constitution 123rd Amendment Bill of 2017. Joining me on the program today are Siddhartha, Advocate of the Supreme Court, Shekhar, Iyer, Senior Journalist, and P.K. Malhotra, former Secretary, Ministry of Law and Justice, Government of India. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Mr. Malhotra, I'd like to begin with you. First, let's try and put into perspective what the Constitution 123rd Amendment Bill is.
I think, as you have said in your introductory remark itself, I feel it is a remarkable amendment in the sense it brings at par the status of the National Commission for OBC with the National Commission for Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes. In fact, we already have provision in the Constitution in Article 323A and 338B, which give constitutional status to the National Commission for Scheduled Caste and National Commission for Scheduled Tribe. The advantage is that now this commission will be having all power of the civil code. And in addition to making a recommendation with regard to the other backward communities, socially and economically backward communities, to be included in the list for the benefit, the most important part of this amendment, power which is given to it by way of an amendment, and I would like to mention it here, is to participate and advise on the socio-economic development of the socially and educationally backward classes, and to evaluate the progress of their development under the union and the state. I think this is a very important function which has been given to the commission, and obviously the kind of neglect which this particular community was feeling earlier, probably their morale will be now high and the commission will be making recommendation for their upliftment. I think that's a very remarkable amendment made to the Constitution, enhancing the status, giving power of the civil court for investigation purposes, and making a recommendation to the government for the upliftment of the socially and educationally backward classes.
Sure. You know, Shekhar Iyer, all that has been said now, taking that into consideration, why has it taken this long for it to actually take effect? Was it lack of political will, or what was it really?
Well, I think last year we saw the opposition blocking this bill. In fact, they were not opposed to the main objective of the bill, but they wanted about the representation to be given in the bill, on that commission. So, and obviously I think there was also one game of one-upmanship, because the idea was that the government should not get credit of bringing such an important legislation. So we saw things moving around circle, because it was last August when the Rajya Sabha returned the bill with amendments, and subsequently it has taken a long time and it has come here. In the meantime, there were a sort of a political battle where the BJP was accusing Congress of blocking the bill, and Congress is accusing the BJP of not serious enough to do something for the backward classes. But I think with Lok Sabha passing the bill, I think probably the Congress-led opposition felt that it would no more be politically advantageous to be seen as somehow trying to pick holes in the bill, because as far as this representation part, the government was saying we can only agree to a woman being made. We cannot because since there is nowhere a provision for reservation on the basis of on religious grounds, so therefore there was a lot of this. But I think the bigger thing is with elections, Lok Sabha elections next year, no political party wants to be seen as playing spoil sport. in the name of bringing amendments. I think
Let's not forget the state elections as well
Yeah,
later this
so
year, which
therefore
has
I
a
think-
sizable OBC
yeah,
population.
so I think this has clinched the issue, but what is more important, I think now that it will have a status like that of SC/ST Commission. So this is going to be I would say, a big game changer also in terms of way our politics has been playing out on the issue of reservation for OBCs and attempts to further subcategorization, because I think that is going to be the bigger dimension. Already there is a Justice Rohini Singh commission which has gone into, which is getting into this categorization. Now, at a time when there is a demand for quota for say Marathas, for Jats, and everywhere there is a lot of restiveness where each community which feels that it has been deprived of the benefit, whereas others have marched ahead. So all that will further would start boiling again, and perhaps a sort of examination would start as to which are the communities that really deserve a place in terms of their social and economic backwardness, because that's a term that needs to be further delineated and further explained, because there are always counter arguments whenever, say, with the question of Marathas or question of Jats, who some members of that community are seen as economically much better off than other sections. Also, there has been a political trend also to recognize the most backward classes among the backward classes, and somehow to give further representation to them, so that the OBC quota is not cornered by those communities which have already drawn benefit, are in a better position to take advantage of whatever is available.
Right, indeed. So let me bring in Siddhartha into the picture now. So what does the constitutional status to the NCBC really mean?
The foremost thing is that it gives this commission some teeth which it was lacking earlier. Not too many years ago, in fact in 2015, this issue came up before Supreme Court in Ram Singh's case with respect to Jat reservation. And there are a lot of things in that judgment, but one thing that stands out is where the Supreme Court observes that what the commission as it existed under the Act, what it had recommended, had simply been superseded by the government without assigning any reasons. That would not be possible any longer, given the fact that now it has a more exalted status as a constitutional body, somewhat on the lines of the SC and ST Commission. That is a very important aspect. Second aspect is, with respect to federal relations between the center and the state, things change now. Unlike SC/ST reservation or the identification of SC/ST communities, OBCs were identified in part by the states. That will change now, because now there will be a central body which has a constitutional status, which would be deciding upon who forms a part of the OBC category or not. Of course, the minister had said on the floor of the parliament that the states will be allowed due power with respect to the identification of the word.
But the final authority will be the will be the center.
Exactly. So these two things definitely bring in a lot of legal shift with respect to the powers of this commission.
Indeed. All right. I'm going to go back to a point that Shekhar Iyer was making, Mr. Malhotra. He was talking about categorization.
Yeah.
Now, do you see that being a big problem going forward, and who's going to be responsible for this categorization?
No, you see, I mean, definitely the commission will be made available the data on the basis of which the commission will have to take a call whether a particular category will fall within the category of socially and educational backward category or not. But the one fact which I would like to highlight here, and I think Mr. Siddhartha also mentioned about it, is that commission is no doubt empowered to classify the category. But we should not lose sight of the fact that the commission is only a recommendatory body. Ultimately, it is the government, the president, which has to notify these classes as socially and educational backward classes. So, it is only still, in spite of the fact that it has been given a constitutional status, it is only a recommendatory body. But at the same time, I mean, I would like to put a rider, once an expert body like a commission which has been given a constitutional status gives a recommendation, probably government will have to give it a serious thinking and take the recommendation seriously, and it cannot be ignored the way, as Mr. Siddhartha pointed out, Earlier it was ignored in case of JAT, that commission is saying something else and the government is doing something else. That situation will not arise in the present scenario once the commission is constituted under the constitution.
Right. And, I'm going to go back to a point that Siddhartha was making, Shekhar, the fact that how the center now is all powerful and the states have less power, they only have recommendatory powers going forward. That having been said, is that something that's going to upset the states? Is that something that, is there going to be some kind of a political fallout as far as that is concerned?
See, there is a problem with the respective of OBC list, because in the case of SC/ST list, it is a central list. There is one list which the central government has formulated, and as and when any community is seen to be included in that, whether it's a tribe or it's a scheduled caste particular community, then it is included. Now, in the case of OBC, the both states and center both were in a position to include in the list. Now, what is being assured on the floor of the House is the states can continue to make recommendation, and those recommendations will be considered on the basis of the kind of endorsement it gets from this national backward class commission, and then a bill will have to be moved in the parliament to include that particular community in that categorization. Now, I think that there is another side to it, which is, you see, what has happened is whichever party is in power at the center, they are under tremendous pressure from these various community leaders to get their thing included. And this plays out in various states where some of these communities are by themselves very powerful, whether it is Jats in Haryana or Marathas in Maharashtra. And tomorrow there could be similar demand arising from the other communities in other states. Now, the center, whichever party is in power, as a shield in the saying that this issue will be now examined by the statutory body, which has all the powers under constitution, and we are not getting into it. If they recommend it, we will accept it. In a way, it shields the party at the center from kind of pressures that come, because all the time what is happening is right before the assembly elections in that particular state, like we are seeing in Maharashtra. Now the Maratha reservation is a very big issue, because initially it was we saw the silent marches, but now it is getting very restive. So in those cases, I think this kind of a commission with statutory body gives a kind of a safety valve, I would say, for the government to take the view, look, let the commission decide, let the commission recommend, then we can move forward. So I think that way there is some kind of a bulwark against pressure tactics by certain community leaders.
Indeed. And talking about the commission itself, Siddhartha, what's the constitution of the commission going to be like?
Under the Act, there were 3 members which were provided for, which were increased to 5. The Act, one may remember, was drafted in the aftermath of Mandal Commission report. That composition has now been adopted under the Constitution itself. The proposal to increase members of the commission from 3 to 5 has been approved, if I am not mistaken, by Lok Sabha. That was one recommendation of the Rajya Sabha which has been approved of by Lok Sabha. That is there. A very spirited argument was made for the inclusion of a lady member. The minister concerned has assured that the inclusion of the lady member would be provided for under the rules. There was also this request for inclusion of an OBC on the basis of religion, which has not been acceded to. Until and unless the rules come out, we would not be very sure as to how the composition would work and who would be heading the commission. Earlier it was a retired judge of the Supreme Court who was always interested with the task of running the commission. Something similar, I am assuming, would be done here as well. This is how it would be.
All right. Talking about the NCBC, Mr. Malhotra, what will the duties of the NCBC be going forward, and what are the challenges that you foresee as far as the commission itself is concerned?
No, as Mr. Shekhar has already pointed out, that it is not going to be an easy task, because there is likely to be conflicting opinions getting from the central government, from state government, and the categories to be included, whether they are backward classes or they are extra backward classes.
MBC is also
and yeah, I mean these are all issues which commission will have to look into, and it has happened in the past where the commission has given recommendation, probably examining at the government level, because that was also a commission which was making recommendation to the government, but those recommendations were not really given weightage by the government, because the kind of consideration or the consultation process which should have been gone into, that process was not there. Now at least as has been rightly said, because in the present commission which is being constituted under the constitution, there will be a president of the commission, there will be a vice president and 3 members. One of them has to be a women representative. Now with regard to qualification, you have very rightly said that it is still not prescribed. This will be framed under the rules. I personally feel it would have been better had it been prescribed in the amendment, constitution amendment itself. That would have given more strength to the commission, which probably has not been done. But in any case, I mean, once the government is going to form a commission, it will see that other commissions, the way other commissions are functioning, and the qualification which has been prescribed for other commission, almost the identical qualifications will be prescribed for appointment in these commissions also. Noted that this commission is mandated to file its report, submit its report to the President of India, and it will be laid before on the table of the House. So the report which will be given by the commission will not only be considered by the government, it is to be submitted to the President. President will place it before the Parliament, and all these reports are subject to scrutiny by the Parliament. So I think this is a sufficient safeguard to see that the objective which you want to achieve by this amendment, that is protecting the interest of the socially and educational backward communities, will be fully protected.
Right. Yeah. What is the political message from all of this, Mr. Iyer? Because you've seen this particular issue, being spoken about very vociferously as well. We've been seen it taken up by several political parties as well over the recent past. What is the message really from this?
Well, I think that the message is, see, the one particular thing which Mr. Malhotra pointed out, now this commission will have all the powers that SC/ST commission has. Particularly, it can function like a civil court. It can summon people, it can take up cases, it can recommend prosecution. So, see, these are the powers that was lacking in the earlier backward class commission. So, therefore, this is likely to bring a lot of immediate relief to those classes which have been very aggrieved over complaints not being properly probed, not being investigated, not being taken seriously. Now that will bring a lot of seriousness. But the other thing which I'd like to flag now is assuming that there are new castes are seen as OBC classes, and there is a recommendation for including them. Now what is already fixed is that 27%. Now the centre's hands are tied up because of the Supreme Court judgment, which is you cannot exceed 50%. Exception being Tamil Nadu, which has a more than 69% reservation, but protected by an amendment in the constitution that is not justiciable. You can't move the court. Now Tamil Nadu is the only exception. Now today we saw during the debate itself, and a debate which is going on over the SC/ST Atrocities Bill Amendment Act to overcome that Supreme Court verdict. There the demand is this, that we will have to do something to overcome this the bar set by the Supreme Court on 50% reservation.
Yeah, ceiling.
Now the clamor for removing this bar imposed by Supreme Court is bound to grow now, because you have a commission which is now going to get into all this. You already have a subcategorization commission going into it. Now all this will ultimately lead to some more communities being identified as a backward community, and reservation has to be provided. Now what happens to the 27%? Can you accommodate the aspirations of all these communities? Then what do we do with this bar, the cap? So you are likely to see a protracted battle between the legislature and the judiciary. See, already that SC/ST Atrocities Act, the way the Supreme Court interpreted it, saying that trying to bring about those kind of directives, which saw an overall condemnation from several political parties, from everybody, because though the court said we are not stopping any investigation under the Atrocities Act, but somehow a mixed signal went out that it could get the communities which are already suffering on account of atrocities being heaped on them, that somewhere along there is a kind of a break when it needs more acceleration. When the cases have to be more accelerated, the Supreme Court observation was seen as a break. So similarly, this 50% cap will be seen as again acting as a kind of a break, which the parties will say, look, we will have to bring another amendment and to overcome this verdict. So I am seeing a more protracted battle over the issue of this cap.
A protracted battle as far as this issue of this cap is concerned is what Mr. Iyer is suggesting. Yes, Siddhartha.
Just to add on to what Sir has said, if one were to analyze the Mandal Commission judgment, one would see that Supreme Court there had acted as a shock absorber, because a lot of things that were being discussed, debated on the streets, leading to bloodshed and all sorts of violence, were better off when analyzed in the cool atmosphere in an abstracted manner. Something similar is happening again. The Commission is now been interested to look after the most sensitive issues as to who's to form the backward classes of this country. All of that cannot alone be entrusted to the legislature. It has to be done by an expert body. So it would also take the sting out of it. If, for instance, coming back to the judgment in Ram Singh, the court was very clearly of the opinion that you have a body which has experts with it, which includes sociologists, anthropologists, economists, everybody. And they have given a recommendation, and you still went ahead and sort of sidestepped it. Now that option to sidestep it is completely gone. So I believe a rational and a more thought-provoking or thought-through debate would happen, and the results would be better in terms of their long-lasting effect and implementation.
The cap issue.
Well, I agree with Mr. Shekhar Iyer that cap issue is likely to be agitated, and probably Commission is likely to make recommendation because of the pressure which it will be getting to include more and more number of people into socially and educationally backward classes. The fact remains, a decision on this issue has to be taken by the government.
Yeah.
Because it will only be a recommendatory body. Yes, the kind of pressure will be there, we can understand that. And the kind of controversy that may arise and disputes going to the court and court again interfering it, I think this is a normal judicial process, and normal judicial process will definitely take its course. You mentioned about the other bill also, the Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribe Atrocities Act. I think that is one area which is still being debated and may raise very important issues, where the legislation has been passed, legislation is under consideration, which is in fact undoing what the Supreme Court has said. I think that again is going to raise a very important issue, whether a judgment of the Supreme Court can be annulled by passing a legislation. That's another issue and another subject of debate which can be debated separately. But so far as the cap issue is concerned, as example has been given in Tamil Nadu, that cap has already been violated. I think time is not far. If the pressure is more, and knowing fully well how the political class function, I mean, if they feel that there is a issue of vote bank coming in, to please their vote bank, if cap needs to be raised, I don't see any reason why the cap will not be raised.
Indeed.
If in one voice all political parties are talking on the same subject, there is no opposition to it. I don't see, like in the Atrocities Act also. Similarly here also, if all political parties are speaking in one voice, there is no reason why it will not be done.
Sure. Time now to get closing comments from all my guests, starting with you, Mr. Shekhar Iyer, with the way forward, really the best way forward.
No, well, see, as one member pointed out in the Rajya Sabha discussion today, all the discussions regarding, the backwardness or whatever, needing more, starts with the caste and ends with the demand for a quota. So therefore, there will be...
Should we get rid of the quota system altogether?
I think what will happen is, because even this 27% about the backward class, that was arrived at because keeping that 50% cap. You already have 22%, so the remaining 22 is the 27 is OBC. Now that has already been questioned by many OBC leaders. They say the percentage of population which belongs to other backward classes is much more than 27. Even there is a view that it could be even 33%. Now there will be, I would see, a very healthy debate opening up on this very issue. Also into that very mechanics of reservation. Is it serving the purpose? Are the deserving classes getting it? Because when there is a demand for more and more communities to be included, because simultaneously this debate will start. And a debate which is not about in the need for reservation or not, whether the reservation mechanism as we have today is actually serving its purpose, whether does it help the people who really need that kind of affirmative action for their upliftment. All this is going to be I would say, a very positive debate
All right. Positive debate going forward is what Shekhar Iyer is suggesting. Siddhartha?
I think the most important thing that we need to look out for is the composition of the commission. How it is composed of, whether all the concerned communities are properly represented. That would not only be just, it will also instill a sense of confidence in amongst the stakeholders. So that is the thing I guess we need to watch out for.
Should the OBCs decide what the future of the OBC should be?
No, it should be everybody, because the pie is limited. All of us have to partake of the same pie. Definitely OBCs, SCs, STs, women OBCs, religious OBCs, all should be there, so that nobody feels left out. But it is not anybody's exclusive right to decide things for themselves.
All right. Mr. Malhotra, close the show.
I think the most important thing which has happened by this constitution amendment is that it has given a comfort to the socially and educational backward classes that look, here is a constitutional body where we can go and present our case, and the kind of power which has been given to the commission. If right kind of people are appointed to this commission, the kind of recommendations which will be given definitely will protect the interest of the socially and educationally backward classes. So far as the cap issue is concerned, Mr. Shekhar has already said, and I am with him. I mean, if there is a demand tomorrow with regard to representation to be increased from 27% to or more with reference to the population, which of the OBC, and a healthy debate is likely to come. I am in entirely agreement with him, and I think this will really set a new tone and a new development we are likely to see so far as the reservation system in the country is concerned.
All right. On that note, then we'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. What's coming out of this debate is the fact that the Constitution Amendment, 123rd Amendment Bill of 2017 is great. It's a step in the right direction, and it's also likely to stem up a healthy debate in the days to come, is what the panelists are suggesting, and we hope just that takes place. So on that note, it's time to call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. See you again next time.